like, don't post it online until you get my permission after around because, like.
It's going to be unlisted.
Okay, yeah, because I don't want people seeing me go for a gamble on this video.
Oh, I record everything.
Yeah,
Upload it. Oh, of course. You actually have your consent to register for that. To go record it? Oh, yeah, actually, yeah. That's why I think it uploaded on YouTube. I think it's in the, I wrote something in the underlying IP of the tab.
Okay.
Close the door.
I'll get it. John, I'll get it.
Speaks have nothing to do with,
I'm also doing the cracking up.
Speaks have nothing to do with how you present them.
Awesome.
These are purely strategy.
Okay, so I'm definitely going to crack it.
Because think about it, I think speaks differentiate like debaters within a bracket. So it's like, it's not how pretty you sound, it's like how you My speaks have been slowly deflating over the course of the tournament.
I did not catch it.
I started with giving a debater like who deserved a 23 to 22. But this is the first round of the topic, and I was like, wait, that's too high.
It's like a subset.
I recalibrated.
Oh,
let me open it in Excel.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure you said an email was down to 10.
Okay. Did you just
I think so.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wait, no, it's here. I don't see the paperclip on Gmail anymore.
That's why.
Yeah, there's no paperclips on my Gmail anymore.
It is obvious that this is trivially true.
That's
F of A is equal to F.
be so great.
Yeah, just inherit the. You literally.
Can you like not?
Bro, dude, the total power, dude.
Can you just not look at? Can nobody look at
Just
you while I'm starting?
This relation inherits this.
Yeah, sure, this I can.
Did I read this? I can't. No. We had a practice. I've never read a game. Any
Bro, dude, Jonathan's ready to win, dude. I'm ready to vote for him.
Why did you choose me to do that?
I thought this was a good time.
Are you a pull-up or are you 5?
I'm forward.
Okay. I mean, hey, he just wanted there to be, 2-5-1s on the divisional student.
I think this was the most strategic bet.
Dude, thanks, Rex.
Okay, everyone ready?
Hang on a second.
Rain.
Orangutan, close the door, dude.
Okay. Everyone good?
Is there an outlet on your speaker? I just want to know that there's an outlet somewhere in this. There's one here.
There's one right there.
Okay.
Sitting.
I'll move eventually. I'm good right now, just in case. Okay.
Good? Okay. If you read this to the end, you'll discover that I'm inviting you to join a real conspiracy. Call it an open conspiracy with real consequences on millions of real lives. I know that sounds megalomaniacal, but be patient. If we pull this off, a great many will bless us. Although the school industry few will curse us, it's about a project to destroy the standardized testing industry, one in which you personally will be an independent unit commander. This adventure is called the Barillec project for reasons you'll learn in just a little while. And keep in mind as you read this, has nothing to do with test reform. It's about test destruction. That's wait. Biopolitics is defined by the sovereign decision on life status. Modes of education are complicit in biocapitalism's attempts to produce the competent, productive worker. Lewis, PhD 13, including media conscious self through the production of certain metaphysical distinctions. These lines in the center are always inherited by rapid produce nexus and common quad. For achieving clarity, sovereign declares to include next with withholding sacrifice and potentiality must be continually access parallel of rights and duties without utility, identity, recognition, legal limit. They take your individual directly to the force of sovereign decision, law, and classrooms, which are all learning from all rights and people, automatically labor, targets, and learning the everybody working on individual employees all around the corners that battery control, life, and classified and realized potential of students, workers, and citizens, voters, who seek my sacrificing potentiality, private, and get a job. It becomes my unit, despite a potential correction on the vote, other black ones, centralized expectation, not even something for academic, other policy, free, self-fulfilling proxy, school person, pipeline master, capacity, with the education, capacity, reducing class race, individual necessity, the sovereign decision, sacrifice, the sort of law, access, of the law, returning to legality, and fighting to necessity, max, arbitrary nature, disintegrate. Once the time on this level, state necessity, potentiality, things could be different, others would be on the form of standardization, existing students of educational reformers, should be sensitive to people, education, state, consistency, would be open and non-sovereign possibility beyond, of intimate and pretty civil logic of learning. That turns schools into a state of exception where warring teeth of color justified on the basis of necessity. Lewis, PhD 06. Education in the inner cities intimately linked with biopractice, primary function, knowledge, things creating corrected workers subject rather simply short of the started self-writing, shall right, including the fragile they medical trends and zero politics and rights, exported doctrine suspension, pulse being willing, responsibility to raise the violation of mandatory through restriction of policy warriors, or primary parts, young permanent step against, even called walking and false and constantly safety, second words, use for striking battery, surveillance, identity, who are asked over the race, and was in the war, navy, security, education, suspended, self force, empires, global policing, aid, replies to public part of the inner city, civil rights, bullying, given in schools, and brings out those giving inclusion, capability, considered to rule their largest reason, nothing more than body, it must be police, your children, select behind or been in the maintain liberally educating, before no longer educating them, was supposed to follow path of principle, pedagogy, reinforcing the narrow pedagogy tool, not to enforce the educational. Like these electrical rights of citizens, children, resources, songs, made much more reading, way, professional children, resulting in campus, no distinction between law violence or life, helpless attention for a sovereign force. Vote apt to say, I would prefer not to. The standardized test is refuses the learning society demands for quantifiable ends in favor of study. For the sake of study, only a pure means can truly liberate education. Lewis, PhD 1383, studies regular discourse, entrepreneur, role, experience, relating to potentiality and potentialities, penetrating realizing the ideas that creative chaos is equally split into abandonment, achievements, process, indeterminate directional means that to the study is not going to search for the start thinking that any repetition being assumption of writing and offer the logical market set, refusing that to often set of indeterminate exposure reflection with strong me, it can also be potentiality, you're not a perfect leader, or a master of all of it, it's called the indefinite potential, judgment, called reserve law, and so on, exploration, discovery, is harmful, it's a sound wrong distinction, studies beyond dichotomous representation, stability of wrong and open possibilities there, this tendency to feel nice stupidity rather than disvalue, to discover habitual stupidity, which is offers to think differently. The state of studies play take creating purpose education plays broad theme and they give opportunity to explore those three functions teach apply times these materials tools allow that state teachers over constant refiguration previous and action which has another utopia or the not using that schools type schools need utopia include another energy coming in change all their taking spend a lot of necessity to simultaneously feel the critical both their potentiality and they also kind of clearly nature their concept for the term point special quest itself as a pure means the role of education is to expose the flaws of potentiality and openness to impotentiality that Blue's page 13 education is considered self-exclusive potentialities of knowledge finding here knowledge helps students fulfill their deep potential like this common sense potentiality be iterated policy to tell behind race to the top data to question potentiality educational philosophers must turn in order to understand that epistemic forms in terms of this question or oppresses in potentiality marginalizing individuals drastic repercussions one individual access projected outwards to the full educational attainment thus there's an ontological question underlying contemporary savage qualities too is only when potentiality and potentiality needs to mutually considered that being fully theorized in the unique experience of study and education and only a Bartleby movement can challenge standardized testing in the educational band data away. Nothing said liberal school tests is more dangerous than numbers and rank order these testing out with this first order with nothing that harm they really constitute matches while the social order ranking outcome reduce and lose like standardized testing is the tail wagging the entire monster force institutional schooling free standardized said uses testing conquered force schooling and travesty but education should be standardized testing subject imagination and like standardized testing some are being made for really finally will be entitled planning at the testing empire off at the news organization required overseas some of them go order elementary be co-opted marginalized corrupted make the protocol courage. School makes mockery, right? School structure now and constantly everything is a little bit like until longer until we're trying to use conscious controls and need perform power units any DM on working out a little more breaking through potential testing we will have to obtain a lot of first step and realizing education that we should move this step and be taking too much money and powers involved. There's only one matrix have to be taking strategic changes and people let the government electly follow civil exercise of people without any hysterics, there's consternation, sort of machinery for using people like yourself to be government human resources for revolution, mass advertising, and charters and peace only these tormented, allowing the power of the internet to prevent young people to refuse probably taking test and demonstration of wrestling, no adversary politics simply red hours for not to let no hierarchy form execution not be uniform, but take tests and differentiate across the country, let's take you heard it first radically, then your results having your very much over like this no anticipating the avalanche, or we probably begin by inviting 60 million American students won't go into peacefully refuse to take standardized test feasible, change institutions and corporations are unable to, the Bartleby project should allow no compromise, don't fall for it, reject compromise, no need to explain why, no need to shout, may the spirit of the scrivener put steel in your backbone to say, I would prefer not to take your test.
Cross. We close the door, not like, close it, like close it.
I mean, don't close it, like,
Jam it shut. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Do you defend a hypothetical implementation of governmental,
I don't defend the governmental policy directly.
like a university policy that doesn't consider SAT? Or like
Yeah, defense that calls the move for thought.
So do you defend implementation?
I don't know what that means.
So like, what do you mean you don't know what that means?
I don't know.
You're saying you don't know what implementation
People like
means?
say
guys?
like T implementation. I have no idea what it means. I don't understand what it means to defend it after that implementation.
Okay, what is a Bartleby ask?
Like what it in general does it mean, or what does it mean in the context of the act?
Both.
So Bartleby was like this. Bartleby the Scriveners was this short story from like the 1800s. But the thesis of it was like this guy went to work one day and he was just like, I would prefer not to work. And then he basically just like chilled there the whole time. He was just saying like I would prefer not to.
Okay,
Whenever
so
they asked him to do so.
How does the affirmative
and-
embody that kind of?
Yeah, so basically when standardized tests present us with this sort of idea of potentiality, we're just saying I would prefer not to.
What is the state of exception?
The state of exception is the sort of simultaneous, so the state of exception is like the ability, so I guess this will require explaining the theory of decisionism, which comes from this dude named Schmidt.
Is there value
Nazi,
like?
but
Is there
basically
value
what
like
he says,
state of exception?
well, I don't know, I have no idea. What does that mean? I'd say like probably not, but like,
Okay, so like.
I think we'd reject ideas that like certain
So, like,
lives
there-
can have or cannot have value because they're just have sort of categorizations that.
So like, there's
results
no
in
way
this
for me,
situation.
as like a biopolitical society, or like state of exception, to have like value to life.
I can't speak for how you would experience the state of exception. We made a broader claim
You
about
can about how like
within
value
states,
is determined
within
by, like,
states of exceptions, certain populations are subject to the violence of the sovereign, and that's bad.
Okay, so they can't find value in life.
They can find value in life, but they're still.
What is like
subject to
not
society.
being like productive,
Like obviously someone can find value in life if they're in a prison, but that doesn't mean.
what is like not being productive due for like disrupting politics?
So it sort of disrupts the logic that
So, like,
the
should,
purpose of
like-
education.
So are you
should be
telling me like
a
blind
constant
people who
focus.
want to like go to college for like athletic scholarships or like to better their family life, like they shouldn't do anything? Well then what is like how do you get solvency towards like disrupting Western like notions of going to like
By saying I would prefer not
so like
to standardized tests.
only like you refuse to take standardized tests.
Not me, it's the app endorses.
So
the
like
broader
if
movement.
someone wants to take like an SAT to like and like go to college and be productive, like do you tell them to like what do you tell them to do?
Obviously, I
Like, you're
can't
moving.
like control what people do.
What-
The app
what
says that the
right,
idea
right. What
of
should they
people
do?
refusing standardized tests, if like a couple individual
Right,
people
what
still
should they
take,
do?
I'm not gonna say what they should.
Wait, so
take
how do you
the
get
test.
any sovereignty?
That person, people should not take standardized tests. They should
Okay,
I
so-
would prefer not to run standardized tests.
Okay, that's fine. Please. 2 off.
Wait, are these somebody's pens? Oh. Is it 2, right?
Started yet?
Oh, sorry, yeah, we're in the one at C, my bad.
Is everyone good? Right. Great.
Interpretation of affirmative must depend on hypothetical implementation that public colleges and universities all not consider standardized tests for undergraduate admission ditches and they don't result in notes of policy and proposal awards for 64. Due to such a determination by resolution of legislature to establish by law colleges, university, or schools after high school study USA, 16 U.S. university or college falls after high school standard tests as specific intermediate for administrators approved 77 standard tests refer to colleges norm reference achievement intelligence which convey specific instructions for administration to determine whether someone is at the school university of shift with 16 administration or decision relating to the academic selection and candidates for entry to the university vote that one is fairness most factor topic adjustment debates on scholarship and ways to having methods that differ from the resolution in the background by hoping and pre-reactionary generics they allow the app to spend their infinite prep advantage because all they have to do is find evidence supporting ideological orientation towards war specializing in for 4 years which gives that a huge number of people switching topics every 2 years discussions 2 months discussion class because all net prep is based on the residence stable since this point they create a structure just incentive to do research not defending clear accurate mechanism means 90% of ground land while the app still gets act arcs like currents which make being neg impossible SSD is good it forces debaters to consider a controversial political issue from not well towards that the non-theological individuals to establish their own barometers for what they wanted to debate leading to ideological dominance even if they prove the topic is about arguments that there is an educational benefit engaging in third TVA defense areas as a biological method of the sovereign decision on the educational system Jordan 05. Examination for an individual who they possess the official knowledge and maybe the knowledge no more with such matters are not knowledge or exam knowledge is used to classify individuals that they interrogate in the society and culture while they used to judge individuals with reference to the group. Results are used to punish for reward or punish individuals. One exam records become impermanent objectification was availing controlling what they were eligible to do. The examination introduces individuality into the documentation. Examination were accompanied by the intense registration documentary society-based passability. The examination constitutes the individual as an affected object power of the examination. Ensures the great disciplinary functions and the fabrication of individuality. These disciplines are modality power which individual difference is relevant. The impact is fairness. Debate is fundamentally game and some level of competitive equity. The serious in the equity, the only impact is to the ballot design who wins the hierarchy just pay money to come determine which proves that every argument they may concede the validity of fairness. Use continuing and competing interest topicality is a question models debate which they should have to proactively justify and will when reasonably links to our office job. There's a bigger dropping the argue separate to remove some minutes of one in the office. No arguments is your burden to be fair and say raising no one for answering inherency putting defense on this side they can't weigh the chaos lack of freedom on prep either. Truth claims are untested, which should present all no impact is exclusion and inevitable because we only have 45 minutes, so it's best to troubles exclusion lower civilized to ensure roll for the negative. Second off. The no greater space of resistance, they take radical space and activity that remains funded by what at least association with labor expectation, capitalism, thrust, and exactly the sort of politics the simulation of agency allows you to print there's outside the system, but 07. This unfocuses consumption as open and identity distinct from the markets and contradiction patterns of consumption are known to be socially exclusive and destructive lifestyle and established patterns of consumption cannot be even extended to in their sugar society locked in maintaining exclusion that requires ever increasing social inequality, degradation, research wars, and enemy discourse of radical change become evident and discourse simulate the validity of the social ideal late modern society reconciles against by simulation by performing the possibility of the alternative. They cope with a fundamental problem providing an arena for discourse of radical change, the experience of authenticity, and their fatalism towards institutions as intrinsically dangerous and weaponized by neoliberals for privatization makes institutions more insidious by choosing the moral priority of refusal over challenging the right grade team. The perceived importance of the state, the widespread rejection, optimistic assertions, and know that nations are not superseded by the facilitators of globalization, eroding collective memory, and the obsession with academic novelty. The collective extent of historical continuity, the only thing is the new under some common mission disengagement, sees the rule and class by rejecting all electoral politics and legitimization without the atrophy of the collective capacity necessary to influence these uncomfortable parallels between dominant neoliberal assertion that an institution inherently corrupt and efficient rule and class of harness widespread dissonance to promote marketization, privatization, degradation. The radical life partisans attacks on social practice, the neoliberals complemented by neo anarchists, following the anti-power middle house cleanliness only because they hold their power over their hands and surrender. Anti-power politics as unable to challenge capitalism for outside total break with capitalist institutions have typically remained dependent on and lack real control. They stay easily crushed and they can oppose capitalism but not transited that. Some of us engage in electoral politics. New radical left parties are beginning to fall into new politics and typical of traditional social democratic parties. The series of government has been called into the Greek state and capitalism because of war, violence, environmental destruction, extinction, Romans 18. Every year, surviving God's revolution against capitalism, the system reaching ecological limits, altering the earth that threatens its extinction, the impact of accumulating commodified nature of inequalities, and unprecedented corruption, involves manipulation and fear and security along the downward mobiles of the social anxiety channel through scapegoat to communities, extreme inequality reduces extreme violence, repression, drone warfare, nuclear warfare, satellite surveillance, cyber warfare, and so far we are reaching limits to expansion. There are no longer territories to extension to integrate, and the alternatives to build class already along a new socialist movement focused on making concrete demands of progress that can transform American society. The vision is necessary to promote movements to challenge Trump, dismantle violent political formation, stabilize shorts, and synagogue 817. Those who are restricting politics and auxiliary reinforcing capital and working people, democratic victories must be followed, single payer healthcare, nationalization of industry, socialists should take the forefront of fights. We can't be the best actors, have to offer analysis that reveals systemic loops and offer reforms. We're seeking warriors that the workers as the central agents of change and articulating collective demands can be characterized, ignoring racial justice of the working class and disproportion, black and immigrant fighting means finding out precisely the issues and Carnation's case. The rule of values determines the absolute good idea. Anything else is self-serving, arbitrary, and begs the question of the rest of the debate solves their opposites, thinking away the outs. Also, from the negative presumption, there are a number of all causes for the argument that their material solvency is extremely vague. So, you should only vote negative presumption, a valid consequence of race 6. Reducing conversation on matters ideological content allows opponents to light inquiry into whether the results of a particular policy are desirable. Everything is made from the ideological terms, opponents will be contention with the issues of how convenient policy is being replaced by ideological issues with examiners, hostility, and deepens recent extinction versus Palmer 15. Reducing accidental risk is the most important thing in the world. So many people exist in the future. Trillions upon trillions reduce accidental risk is the most important. Even if well-being of these possible people were giving only 0.01% as much, we shall take into account moral uncertainty. Even if we are 1% sure that the well-being matters from moral uncertainty, reducing accidental risk is the most important thing in the realm. All minimally possible moral views will converge on that we are trying to save the world. No, impact of power rainbow 6. Again, the argument that power is ultimately empowered will take another. Nowhere is it useful to take a single diagram to analyze every contemporary instance. Biopower under national socialism was a complex of the politics of life and death. The fact that was dependent upon a host of other historical, moral, political, and technical conditions. And American power projection solves arms races, land grabs, rogue states, and great power will reject old defense that ignores emerging instability and compounding risk. Brains 18. Use accounted for global power projecting capabilities and key overseas strategic region that actually Saddam is superior to anything a regional radical could employ even on its own geological doorstep. Military dominance constitutes the hard power backbone, averting a return to the use of stable multipolarity, suppressing international scourges such as rogue states, nuclear proliferation, and catastrophic terrorism. Washington lose credibility. This stability will be eroded. International crisis will go under great power. Military competition is back. China and Russia are seeing regional hegemony. International powers are no longer so weak. The rogues are not more capable than any time in decades. The number of challenges has multiplied through Asian terrors, more diverse array of threats by Russia and China, and U.S. is an energy armor is China key to hedge every 19. The U.S. has a new mission to trigger revolution in American education to win the space to also get young Americans educated. STEM has begun in concern for American education. The new competitor for STEM is looming on China. 17 leadership remains just as vital to our national security. In the future, America's defense will rely on advanced technology. They will also require new level scientific engineering aptitude. The same is true for high tech and critiques hegemony are competent and go to the threatens the unipolar order kick in 98. Core Spain and hegemony are playing a dangerous game, but in the entire system came crashing down the go trip of post-Vietnam. There came American universalism, regime, market, imperialism. Which card? Caping card. Critiques of the hegemony. Okay. Status the alternative. What movements does the alternative endorse? How do those solve
the
the
more
void?
socialist movements that are key to fight
Actually, you know, what is American power projection?
American power projection is like the amount of international opportunity that we have.
What does that mean?
So like the
Like, what does that entail?
the ability for like the United States to like control and like take like defend ourselves away from like other kind of hegemons like China and Russia, which are continually like pro states and could like lead to.
How does capitalism cause extinction?
Right, so capitalism right now is in a very unsustainable system that requires the continual greed and like converting land to like capital, which requires like continuing environmental destruction. There are things like climate change, which will like change our society like completely, and even if you read only like extinction, it will necessarily happen. Like that is a huge impact that affects humanity.
How does the alternative solve climate
marginalized
change?
communities.
How does the alternative solve climate change?
We disrupt like the capitalist greed of productivity into one
What does
that's
that
more
mean?
focused on the collectivist like.
So like, how do you get like corporate elites from stopping destroying the
I
environment?
think like in this like a socialist state, like corporations would not have that much power.
How do you
like,
get to
the
the
workers
socialist
without the
state?
collectivist state? This is like a frame, like this is frame. Like we offer a method of like orienting ourselves.
You have
towards
no
this party.
explanation how it results in socialism, or when
We offer an alternative to the affirmative, like
Sure. How does power projection solve arms races?
because right now like the only thing that is stopping like countries like China and Russia is America's power projection.
What power projection are we doing that deters them from developing nukes? Or I guess like what arms races? Like they already have tons of nukes.
What do you mean?
Like what stuff? So can you give me an example of like something America is doing with their power that deters China from developing nukes?
Mutually assured agreements like that ensures that like.
How does the app get rid of mutually assured
I think the app makes a claim that like liberalism and like hegemony is bad. Like,
Where?
I think like Gauguin explicitly states that.
Where does the app say that?
It makes claims about how
I haven't read a card
It makes
by
claims
it.
about how the sovereign is like problematic and like the way that he created a state of exception, which is clearly like a liberalism bad argument. Like,
Where are your cards talking about liberalism?
well, I think like liberalism is nothing to really like.
What is liberalism?
Liberalism is like classical or like.
You said
Like,
that says
liberalism,
liberalism
like-
is bad.
Like ideals that like promote like free democratic ideals and like stuff like
What are
that.
free democratic ideals?
Things like freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of
Where does the app say any of that?
We think that the affirmative problematizing the sovereign is problematic because we think that the United States federal government is necessary to establish a world order in which Russia and China don't nuke us.
4 minutes. Alright, 52 seconds left. Case topicality of captain. What's the order? Case topicality of captain.
Is there a
Yes.
Y'all vote whether I move forward or backward.
what?
Y'all will vote whether I move, like, we get real comfortable,
Let's get
or we have a real distance. Alright.
Yeah,
So, first you see how far the court's gonna reach, and then Rex probably should have to back up. I know, it's like we're having a conversation.
Yeah.
Right. Process. We real people first.
This is too close.
Whoa.
Where's my mouse? Right.
Oh, what did you get?
It's like 3D, Good.
Education is defined by the sovereign decision on educational life as a result of biocapitalism, the learning society demands progression of competent workers whose future abilities can be measured at every point along their educational journey by objective quantifiable metrics. This results in the those who fail to meet those standards are marked with fair life and outside the educational order. The state of exception in schools just by filing hard times and excessive suspensions that create a self-fulfilling prophecy by causing black youth to internalize their educational failures, which results in the school to prison pipeline. Vote I have to say I would prefer not to standardized test that refuses metrics based on predefined ends, producing competent workers and instead approaches education from the perspective of creativity, freedom, reflection, and experimentation. Refuses strict deadlines in favor of the indeterminacy of educational projects and challenges the idea that Harvard is just for econ, tech, and crafts by recognizing the value of a plurality of ways of relating to education. The radical revaluation of education itself that makes college admissions non-violent and refuses to judge people based on how well they did or where they went to college. The limelight, the overview answers why you should put on productive be the specific method for being able to resolve our impacts. The extinction first notes not there's no impact to future generations. 8.8 don't exist yet, and if they didn't exist, that means they would have never existed, which means they never had the capacity to experience pain and pleasure. B point is it's impossible to discount whether or not and determine whether or not those future life would have value because they're so far down the line. We don't know what those lives would look like. It's possible they could have negative value, which makes speculating about it impossible. We do have an impact of biopower. Our overview disproves it. These are proves that in steps where there's specific manifestations in schools via the educational ban, via things like zero tolerance, hyper-militarization of schools, and putting schools on lockdown, excessive in-school suspensions, etc., which proves there is a specific impact. Obviously, there are certain contingencies, but those still happen within the broader structure of sovereignty. Hedge good. There's no internal link to it. We criticize specific manifestations of biocapitalism in the context of education, which results in our impacts, but it's not a sort of broader critique. It also links terms that are war education war with China. These all evidence proves that the standardized testing metrics and all those metrics don't achieve their goal by trying to turn the value of education into a measurable number, which means even if they're right about this sort of which means the app link turns in views. It proves that we create a better motive relating to education. There's also no internal link views. The app only alters our relationship to education, which doesn't spill into broader structure of neoliberalism. Even if they critique our impact turning some broader idea that a government talks about, it doesn't link to our specific advocacy, which is just saying I would prefer not to test. There's no their impact their evidence has no word. It just says we thrashed Saddam in like 1992 and says that China and Russia are probing resolving our status quo, but that doesn't prove anything. It doesn't have a terminal impact. It just lists a bunch of stuff, but doesn't have any reason why those cause extinction or why those things are bad, which means the case ways. It's also a double turn with the cap case because it says that in America intervening in other places is a good thing, which the cap case disagrees with as per their Robinson evidence, which means you shouldn't let them go for either of them because it makes one air strategy impossible. They figure out their life our framework. Counter-duration resolution to artifact we must interrogate solves our options by living out micro-political positions and anti-top class results means to reduce through mental analysis, random class results reduced by mental analysis. Their result definition makes no sense. It would make no app topical because it forces governmental action. They can't kick definitions because they established it in the 1C, which proves their interpretation is incoherent because they say the app has to defend a legislative policy which is outside the bounds of the topic, which internally turns all their principal limits off. If we win the thesis of our app, we meet their interp. The existence of an exception gives coherence to the rule in the state of exception. There's no distinction between the interp and the violation. Counter only our app is topical. It's also in link terms their offense. We meet the app AFS colleges and universities not consider testing every diss that applies if they can't consider as testing good they don't deserve to win. Counter-term colleges are groups of people mirroring Webster, an organized body of persons engaged in a common pursuit will impact their limits often questions on ontology and identity, critiques of governmentality, and liberals of all belonging to debate. This is a diss that their term any context which debates the marginal wasteland of policy counterpoints and policies is no uniqueness for any of this, but they're often the topic subjects they wouldn't have ground anyway, and this gives them better ground because they get access to more broader critiques because they have a more radical reform than just getting rid of one tiny test which turns all their offense. True testing is wrong, something being hard to answer doesn't mean it's wrong. You wouldn't presume it's a new just because the neg wasn't prepared to answer really solid on a sliding scale, so risk of our impact outweighs parents just aim for linked education needed when the game is preserving its current form. Cap. Permutation to the after criticized the learning society's demand for the production of competent workers. Permutation to the after military and all their instances we impact her top-down organization in the context of education or gather evidence says that it's inevitably controlled by money and power, which means their resistance will inevitably need to be cooperative, which means that apps specifically needs to be decentralized even if other movements are effective. No glue link, the card says literally nothing, it's just word salad. We never claim create a space of resistance, just said the app is a good idea, like every single app that links to them, these voting neg doesn't start the revenue institutions, like we don't disagree with policies, just waste certain norms of inclusion rights in life, or use to create state of deception. They alter themselves fast enough because you can't change the climate and they don't have a eternal impact to warm.
Okay, can you go over this answers on TV?
The arguments that I made?
Yeah, so I got the counter term, then the one we stand term gives broader ground. Was there an argument?
Between what?
The one we stand term and gives them broader K.
No.
Or broader ground because the rest sucks.
There were a few arguments.
Yeah.
If we win the app, we meet your inter because the existence of an exception gives coherence to a rule, which means in the zone of indistinction between the exception and the
I got
rule.
that. Can you give the next one?
Counter only or app is topical.
Next one.
We meet the app has colleges and universities not consider testing. You don't have a violation. Every diss that applies, you can just win. Standardized testing is good.
What were the dissets?
Like what dissets apply? Every disset, like any disset that says standardized testing good enters the app.
Oh, sorry. Was there an argument after that?
Counter creation colleges are groups of people. Impact term limits, questions of ontology and identity, critiques of governmentality, liberalism, belonging debate. Your forced debate to cross counterpoints in politics dissets. There's also no uniqueness for any of your offense because there's no neg ground, which means Barnshire is better for neg ground because you actually get access to arguments because the app is like a big thing as opposed to changing one test, which has like just leads to great inflation, which is not unique. That probably doesn't have an impact. Truth testing is wrong just because something's hard to answer doesn't mean you presume it's false. You don't presume it's a new app. Answerability is on a sliding scale, so the risk of our offense outweighs. Fairness is an internal link to education. These need to win games worth preserving in its current form.
Did you have an argument why games don't work preserving?
The like questions of so like all of our offense above proves that your model of debate is
Like the
not
case page?
valuable and not educational. No, like the stuff about well, I guess like the case page too implicitly, but our specific arguments that prove that are the like questions of ontology and identity and governmentality belong in debate. Yeah, that's probably the main.
Okay. Was there an answer to the TVA?
Not an explicit one.
Oh.
Our app is. You can see my pen.
capitalism not going for firms such as a test of competition. They might go for this double turn argument in the two-way, but there's nothing about the United States and hegemony that requires exporting capitalism as a politics. The alternative would solve for this because they would be a socialist state. Also, slightly contradictory positions are okay if the affirmative is literally impossible. Well, the question is T is a procedural question before we could evaluate the content of the AC. T. Topicality is a good norm to preserve because it maintains the competitive value of debate. The AFIS endorses a model of debate with no limits where the applicant stand up and decide the nature how we debate the resolution through a method 30 minutes for the round. The negative has no role / ground for condensation. For example, infinite number of philosophers from Socrates to freaking Woolerson have criticized standardized testing and the conforming of the citizens within educational systems with a widely different way of defending a method to solve this, which means that the negative has no role for contestation. Our interpretation allows for a specific type of defending the resolution that limits the grounds of arguments. It's not going to be the best objective one, obviously, but if we prove that it is a good thing to have an objective interpretation of the resolution that is sufficient to vote negative, only our impacts are supported by a plausible theory of debate. There's no external agency of the ballot. All this debate determines is who gets a win on tab, nothing more, nothing less. Debate isn't good for making us loyal to any particular content, any particular ethical theory, or altering our subjectivities. It's certainly will lead to biopolitical control. Instead, debate is a game. There are two impacts. First is fairness, which is an all impact. At a fundamental level, debate is a game, and games are silly if they don't have boundaries of one side can't win. If the affirmative can decide the nature and the way that they will affirm the resolution as a method, we can decide the topic 30 minutes before the round and not through a hypothetical implementation of policy. It results in enormous outside bias and encourages teams to find some obscure method to defend the resolution and some random philosophy that explodes the number of affirmatives. You can ask yourselves why we all miss school to come to this tournament. Why do we spend late night cutting cards? Why do we waste our weekends doing this activity? This investment in time and resources proves that we all think debate has some intrinsic value that matters to us, and if you don't think contestation uniquely good, then you can just leave. Also, second argument is that strategy always rears your head. It colors the arguments that we choose to read. The one is you want to just choose to read 6 minutes of a Dadaist poem, even though that would be a better way of disrupting Western productivity within the space. They specifically read cards that preemptive framework and indict conceptions of normativity within the space, which means that they think there is some kind of competitive incentive. In addition, they submit to things like speech times following tavern rules, prove that they think some amount of engagement is good. If they really thought that they were disrupting conceptions of productivity within the space, then they would have read their affirmative for 8 minutes. The third argument is research. Resolution debates focus research on specific points of difference, which encourages team to develop third and fourth line responses to argument. The strategic process is what makes debates new and interesting and thus more exciting to judge, which is also its own impact. It has a significant pedagogical value of training us to think through the other side's opponents and rigorously vet our own position. The interpretation exposed limits and encourages teams to research interesting. What I see is that for the absolute generics on the neck that don't engage nuances or push us to the margins of the literature. This turns out our education arguments because we are worse scholars and academics who are less capable of parsing through the claims of the literature to determine their truth. This is not a skills argument. We're making an argument that knowledge isn't intrinsic within this space, so don't let them make an argument that the negative is trying to make some movements. We don't think that there's any kind of spillover from this debate space because debate doesn't alter any of our subjectivities. It just merely tests whether to tell whether who won or not, which proves that. But it is a constraint on the kind of education that we can presume that link turns the entirety of the affirmative, the line by line. The counter-interpretation of the resolution is an artifact, but this doesn't solve our one is that this doesn't solve our limits argument. There are an infinite number of ways that we can reduce the resolution through mental analysis that is not micropolitics, anywhere from Lacan to Lewis Baudrillard to Woolerson to Edelman to Socrates, different intersections of these authors, etc. Our interpretation specifically makes us make sure that the topic is limited to arguments that defend a hypothetical implementation. Second is that this is still an arbitrary division of ground. You say that next argument you make is that you meet the state of exception, but first is that T is a procedural question before we can evaluate whether we are in a state of exception. In the first sense, you should presume negative because we haven't been able to interrogate their truth claims. Second is that you haven't proven that there's a state of exception within this debate space. Just really macro-political proof that interpretations are still possible within this particular debate space, even if they aren't possible outside of society. Third, you make this argument that counter-interpret just us. One is norming decide. Every person will say that it should be their alpha, should still explode limits. Second is that you concede competing interpretations. You have the obligation to vote for the best norm for the activity. The position is unpredictable. They should still lose. Third is that this doesn't solve any of the offense because I still can prep for this particular round in this particular position. Next, you make this argument that no one would meet our definition because it just says that we have to have a hypothetical implementation of government. This is literally not true. This says that it needs to be established by law and have a vast majority of a vote through a legislature, which clearly universities can have because they are assemblages of bodies that have democratic majorities of votes. Saying that Harvard is just like some sovereign who doesn't allow for this kind of negotiation is absolutely ridiculous. We have proven that all they have to do is propose legislation which solves for all of their offense, and the answers to no me. Next argument you made is that we defend the topic. One is that until they are tied to a specific implementation, you could always shift your one and say no link any argument. We don't know exactly what the affirmative defends unless it is grounded in policy division. Second is that this is concessionary ground. There is no negative ground on this topic. Translates to research that's high enough magnitude probability that standard says will lead to dissent, which means that only grounds are fixed in second such as the data pick. This which can only happen with after events of hypothetical implementation. Third argument you made is that we allow for more kind of research like cases, but again, unless you're established by a stable advocacy that is tied to the resolution, instead of having some vague method of what the hell is a Bartleby movement? How does that affirm the resolution? Like what? Like I can't read settler colonialism because it is just a refusal. They literally perm every freaking argument. Next, you make the argument that counter colleges are a group of people. First, is that this is just a stupid argument. Yes, we know that college is made of organized bodies, but that doesn't mean college equals organized bodies. Specifically refers to higher education institutions that are made of organized bodies. Second is that this exposes limit. Does anyone think that organized bodies in college is this space itself? Does this space which has me, Jonas, and Rex count as a college? Third, next we make this argument that union factoring limits. First, is that the TV largest solvers that you can do in TV as well as music country law. Solve all your offense because you use the absence and impact however what matters if you critique this as that maintain the logic of the status quo and state psychological consequences. The one is to be resistant towards the state's attempt to render all black subject into informational bits, which prove that all your pedagogy can be included under TBA, which was not answered.
52. Wait, what was this argument you made that was like there's no net ground or something?
We said that the grounding was just concessionary ground.
Okay. 18. Everyone good?
Just to hear it.
Yeah. Good?
Yeah.
Good. Framing issues, they've done a lot of work warning why the resolution is good, but they haven't done enough to establish a violation or explain why our counter-creation is bad. I'll go for the counter-creation that colleges are groups of people. They have not counter-defined this word in the resolution. There is just assertion that it's a context of higher education, but only if we have evidence from a specific dictionary that defines exactly what a college is, which means that the affirmative is topical, which means the affirmative is topical. It doesn't explode limits. They're obviously functional limits. Because just defending that one single person gets rid of standardized tests obviously wouldn't solve anything and would reduce the presumption, which forces us to defend broader changes to the status quo, like the affirmative, which sort of is a probability argument that empirically proves that our counter-creation is able to resolve a sufficient amount of their limits. Often, now there are two net benefits to our interpretation. First is questions of ontology, liberalism, etc. do belong in the debate space and only occur in a world in which we're able to defend that like this sort of broader movement that our evidence is in the context of the entirety of the 1ACs. They just had the topical version. They did zero work on it in the 2NR. In the 1NC card just says that it's a form of biopolitical control. We agree, yeah, is the topical version used to criticize the specific mode of biopolitical control and offers a specific alternative, which is colleges and universities not considered standardized tests, but interpreting colleges in the ways that it means individual groups of people, which is most predictable because they don't have a counter definition of colleges that they've extended in the 2NR. And even if they do, the fact that we both have predictable interpretations of the topic means that you can default to evaluating the sort of pragmatic benefits of each interpretation. Their second net benefit, or sort of those questions belonging to babies, they inform the ways in which we think about the world. Obviously, one single ballot doesn't do anything besides telling taboo one, but the sort of content that we talk about matters for the same reason that debating about slavery good isn't a valuable form of education, because the sort of content of what we talk about does matter, and sort of having every debate about silly process debates and preventing the debate from accessing its full liberatory potential does matter, because fairness is just an intro link to education and differentiates why debate is different from other activities like Yahtzee. The topical second net benefit is that there's no ground on this topic, but only our interpretation has the risk of increasing ground. There is zero answer this into the 2NR, which means even if they're winning all their arguments, it means there's just zero impact to any of their offense, because even if their answer is more predictable, if the neg is going to lose anyway because they have zero ground because the topic is so bad, that means it doesn't resolve any of their offense offense and needs any risk of our interpretation being better for that current net outweighs their offense. Yeah, still is a stable advocacy. I don't know why they think that we're able to just permeate if you read every argument. That's just because they didn't read the core argument, which is just saying that standardized testing is good, which is literally how you answer every single app on this topic. They could have read the grade inflation data, they could have read the competitiveness data, they could have read literally any data that says standardized testing good, which proves we solve all of their predictability offense, but we give them better ground because we critique the broader structure of standardized testing, which allows them to get offense to things like top-down educational movements are good, education reform is good, things like liberals are good, which yes, I did link out, but that's just they could have gone for it in the 2 and it's their fault that they're not prepared to sort of defend those arguments, which proves we solve their offense, but increase down, which is the uniquest question that is conceded. Yes, debate is a game, but it has impacts beyond that. So it's their sort of reason we miss school. There's no way to sort of verify those claims, and it still relies on debate producing some sort of value. Yes, strategy rears its head, but there's specific educational practice that can inform that, and the research up is new in the 2 and R because it wasn't in the 1C.
I'll be back. That's coming, Ethan. Good. Writing out your sentences. I'm thinking of running a non-T-set call tomorrow. Or Dingzaf. Just read Bodger. Just to spin it up.
Wait, Joe, can you check if you have this?
I do.
Oh, cool.
Do you have my stand?
No. Because I gave you your stand back. When did...
We'll just go to the bathroom.
Because I need to leave.